Good morning, everyone. We'll get started in about 30 seconds. Okay, well, welcome to today's State and Federal Programs Directors Meeting. This will be our last State and Federal Programs meeting for the 22-23 school year. Can't even believe the year has flown by. Next slide, please. I'm Adrienne Balcazar, and today I am joined with my colleagues, Rachel Garcia, Debbie Cano, Helen Choi, Anita Lomali, and Jeannie Keith. We hope everyone is looking forward to some time off during the summer as we wrap up this school year and looking forward to the summertime. The topics today that we will be covering is an update on the Consolidated Application, the federal program monitoring update. Debbie will share a bit on the civil rights reviews. Jeannie and Rachel will be sharing some important feedback from the pre-reviews of the LCAP and also on the submission of your board-adopted LCAPs to the LACO electronic system. Helen and Anita will share the latest on the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act and what we know thus far. And lastly, we will be asking everyone to complete our end-of-year survey today or the soon thereafter. Your input is vital because we use this to guide our planning for next year's state and federal programs meetings. And once we have your input, then we will be emailing you the 23-24 schedule of next year's meetings. As usual, please place your questions in the chat box and we will answer any simple questions if we can, but we always follow up with the written responses in a Q&A that will be emailed to you. Also, we are recording today's training and we will post this on our website. You can find the Q&As as well as the slides and handouts from our previous meetings at this link. So here we go. As you know, CDE released the 22-23 winter release of the Consolidated Application last Friday, May 19th. In the springtime, right? So as Bonnie had previously shared, the deadline has been shortened to a 3-week time span. We hope you are prepared for this and that you have all the information needed to complete all the required reports in this short time. Since we will not be providing a 22-23 winter release ConApp workshop, we have provided resources here to help you complete the ConApp. The winter release deadline is on Friday, June 9th at 11:59. If for some reason you need to go back to your ConApp to make corrections or adjustments, the forms will close at 11:59 on Friday, June 30th. Please remember though, after June 30th, the CAR system will be closed. On CDE's Consolidated Application webpage, you will find the entry point to the ConApp. Under the What's New section, you will also find the instructions, the assurances, the guidance, and news flashes, among other resources. If you click on the news flash, you will see the latest news flash, which is number 76. This is a very helpful resource, and here you will find the list of forms that have changed, a summary of the changes, and the specific CDE program staff to contact when you do have questions. If you click on the 22-23 ConApp program guidance, you will find guidance for completing the winter release using CARS. You can see here the table of contents for the winter release as well. When you select the 22-23 ConApp program instructions, you will find this to be probably the most helpful for completing all the forms of the winter release. We have also provided copies of the guidance and the instructions for your convenience, but you can also find them on CDE's ConApp webpage. We also wanted to bring to your attention a 2-hour video with the technical assistance needed to complete the forms for Title A, Part A, and Part D. When you follow this YouTube link to the video, you will see that CDE has tabbed the Title I forms by slides and timestamps. So you can go to the exact section of the video for that guidance. And so again, this is new that CDE is providing as a resource due to the short time span. Okay, now let's move on to the federal program monitoring update. If you have been selected for a 23-24 FPM review, you will be receiving a notification very soon, if you haven't already received it, with the schedule of dates, the schools, and the programs to be reviewed. And it will be emailed to the LEA's FPM review coordinator that you provided at that original notification where you had to submit that survey. And I think for Region 11, we were told that a couple of weeks ago that almost all of the 23-24 districts and charters had responded. So once all of the LA County districts and charters had submitted that, that's as quick as they can respond and send notification for next year. CDE has also confirmed that in June, the 23-24 FPM instrument should be posted on the CDE compliance monitoring webpage. So be on the lookout for this. CDE's virtual training will be held during the first week in August. CDE will be sending the LEA's FPM coordinators all the FPM virtual training information. And for those that are being reviewed, it is very important to remember to invite to this virtual training all of your district and site level staff that will be assisting you during the FPM review. So all the different programs and departments and schools that are selected for the FPM review, it's important to make sure that they're all part of this training that is pertaining to their particular program. We also often get the question, if LEAs who are not selected for the FPM, can they attend this training? And so we asked this of CDE and they told us, yes, you can attend. But what they did ask is that if you can just wait until after July 10th, because that is when they will have all of the training passwords and links and the schedules and agendas, everything will be ready. That's their target date. So there's no point in asking before that because you'll just kind of be put in a queue for us. But basically, so we're asking anytime after July 10th, if you can email our office at sfp@laco.edu and just send a simple email to us requesting access to the FPM training, and then we will be happy to provide you with the links and the passwords for each of those training dates. So again, all you need is that. And so if you want to, we highly encourage it, and they highly encourage it as well. They just want to track who is participating that's part of the review and who's participating that's not part of the reviews, just for their own knowledge. So again, you can join, and I highly encourage it. Okay, so now let's take a look at what went on this past year during the 22-23 FPM reviews. Here are the top 5 frequently non-compliant items in compensatory education. So based on 75 CE reviews that happen all the way up through March, this past March, combining the on-site and the online reviews, the top non-compliant items were and are the school, parent, and family engagement, CE2, and there was often confusion in terms of some districts thinking CE1 and CE2 were the same, and so they're not. They're one is district level and one is site level. School site evaluation of program effectiveness. A lot of times the findings were because the school site council did not follow this end of the year process as before they revised their plan for next year. There has to be a evaluation of the program effectiveness and looking at what worked, what didn't work, and seeing how that applies to the revised plan moving forward. So if you didn't explicitly do that, if you didn't include the feedback within your SIPSA or a separate document that is kind of a companion document to your SIPSA, again, they're looking to make sure that you have followed this actual evaluation process. And then, as always, allowable use of funds. Again, remember, it's to implement your Title I program. It's not a pot of money. School site council composition. Again, you know, the requirements are simple. You know, you need parity from the staff side or the school side and the parent side. You need to have a certain amount of people, and so again, this is often is a common finding. So again, looking at your existing compositions and at all your schools, and perhaps having something included in your bylaws to make sure that you're, you know, always have a process to if you lose members during the year, and to make sure that you continue to have a legal viable school site council so they can conduct the business that needs to happen. And then also school site activities, CE6. So again, making sure that all your activities are part of you implementing your Title I program. And you can take a look at the CE instrument for these items and see if your LEA would be compliant or not. So whether you're being reviewed, you were reviewed. Again, we'll go over these findings more in depth at our next SFP meeting next school year. But again, just wanted to give you a pulse on this up until March. And again, we have, I think they just are finishing up the 22-23 FPMs this month, and I think next month as well. Also, looking back at this year, the top 4 frequently non-compliant school support and improvement, the SSI items. This is based on 53 of the reviews that took place through March. Number 1 is school site activities. Again, making sure if it's CSI, the CSI activities, the ATSI, making sure that you're following the requirements. Allowable use of funds, again, pertains to the funding of CSI. So is it being used for that school? Is it being used to support and address, you know, what identified the school for CSI? Also allocations and reporting. So some kind of fiscal records and record keeping, making sure you have that process in place. Also supplement, not supplant with school improvement funds, making sure that you're supporting the existing program at the school, and it's supplementing, not supplanting. Okay. Lastly, I want to share an update on the Fiscal Monitoring Unit. So the Fiscal Monitoring Unit is responsible for conducting a more in-depth review of the fiscal side of your federal programs. So during your FPM reviews, they look solely at your fiscal records for Title I, Title II, Title III, and portions to Title IV. And these past few years, they have also had a focus on the review of the disaster recovery funds and the federal stimulus funds. And so if you have been reviewed in the last 2 years, you might have seen the FM instrument, the fiscal monitoring instrument, not posted, because again, what they have put is the CARES Act or the federal stimulus CARES Act instrument, and that has been what the focus for the Fiscal Monitoring Unit has. They've been looking at that particular, those funds and the disaster recovery funds. So we want to make sure that everyone knows that the Fiscal Monitoring Unit is going to be adding the Extended Learning Opportunities Program. They've added this state program to the FPM reviews, and they're planning to add a few ELOP reviews towards the end of next school year. So if you're up for review, you might have this possibly added. They're not quite sure, or if they're going to select districts outside of the FPM review, but this is coming soon and they don't have anything solidified. However, we would have expected that it was ELOG, but the ELOG, because that did have federal funds included in it, but they assured us it's the ELOP, which is the state program. So again, more coming soon, but definitely wanted to keep that on your radar, because as the summer happens, you want to make sure you have an understanding of what documentation you're going to have to potentially pull and have on hand. So we want you to be ready. So what might the fiscal monitoring unit be looking at for compliance? They have stated that they will most likely be looking at your time and effort records, your internal controls, your allowable costs, the reporting and the funding, looking at your procurement of these funds, and also equipment inventory if you've purchased anything with these ELOP funds. Again, it's basically very similar to the fiscal monitoring of all your federal programs. So again, we want to make sure that if you're not directly connected to this, definitely you want to find out who is, and you want to make sure that they're aware of these types of fiscal records that are going to need to be kept and easily at hand if you're selected for an FPM review, but also just it's part of your legal assurances of accepting, well, getting these funds. So again, we want you to remember that compliance is not optional, that when you sign the legal assurances, you are assuring that you will follow all the legal requirements of the programs. And that's it. And now Debbie will share about another type of review, the civil rights review.
Thank you, Adrienne. Good morning, everyone. Okay, so I'm going to be giving you a broad overview of the civil rights review. So LEAs that offer or administer career technical education, or CTE, must meet certain civil rights requirements. The California Department of Education has the regulatory responsibility to ensure that all students have access to CTE programs in California public secondary schools. The CDE is required to adopt a civil rights compliance program to identify, remedy, and/or prevent discrimination in CTE programs offered or administered by LEAs. Parallel citations of state civil rights laws and regulations have been provided to ensure that all students have access to the programs. It is important to note that the Civil Rights Review, or CCRR, process is separate from the Carl D. Perkins CTE Improvement Act, which involves on-site CTE reviews coordinated by the CDE's FPM office. So the CRR process is coordinated by the Office of Equal Opportunity. So the CDE's Office of Equal Opportunity, OEO, is charged with conducting the civil rights review. So they're separate. Next slide. Okay, so what is a civil rights review? The first sort of large guidance is they follow the vocational education program guidelines for eliminating discrimination and denial of services on the basis of race, color, national origin, sex, and handicap, otherwise known as JUST guidelines. And this particular resource, the responsibilities of the school site it's the responsibility of the school sites who receive federal funds and offer CTE programs that have to meet this requirement. And the next legal authority part of the CRR is Title VI, which prohibits discrimination and exclusion from participation and the denial of benefits based on race, color, and national origin in all programs and activities receiving federal funds. Next is Title IX, which prohibits discrimination on the basis of sex, and all educational programs and activities, again, which receive federal funds. And lastly, it's Section 504, which prohibits discrimination based on disability in programs and services and activities receiving federal financial assistance. Discrimination of all students with disabilities are covered under Section 504, regardless of their eligibility for special education or related services under IDEA. Next slide, please. Okay. Actually, we're on the previous slide. There we go. So on this slide, it's a broad overview of the CRR process. It starts behind the scenes with the selection, and there's a lot that goes into the selection process before they actually reach out to a specific school site. Once those selections are made, we go into a pre-review where the site is assigned a coordinator to help be prepared for the review. And then there's the on-site process, usually with conducting of interviews, a facilities review, and then there's ongoing technical assistance throughout this process, and then in the end there's the resolution process, which includes a letter of findings, voluntary compliance, and then again ongoing technical assistance. Next slide. So I said there was a lot that went into the site selection. So the federal law requires that the CDE conduct on-site reviews of 2.5% of the subrecipients offering CTE programs, or a maximum of 25 school sites each year. Along with that is a district level review. So the CDE develops a target plan to identify the federally funded schools with CTE programs that might benefit from an on-site review. Then they apply this to its target plan with a comparison by race, sex, disability status. And the comparisons are made between the school's general student population and the student's CTE population. They're using CalPADS data for this. And then they assign points for each variation, and ultimately the schools with the highest points overall in the specific category that they're selected, and they take into consideration also if the school site may not have been reviewed within the past 5 years. So it's every 5 years that you can be reviewed. Next slide. During the actual on-site review, there are 3 categories of evidence. These are referred to as the monitoring dimensions. And the first one is documentation. This is the physical material, such as school site handbooks or flyers, or annual notifications, brochures, and policies and procedures. The next is observation, where they actually walk around the school site to see the physical accessibility of various facilities that are used for the CTE and students, for CTE students. And then the last component is the interviews, and they will speak with relevant staff, which usually includes your Title IV, your coordinators of Title IV and Title IX, and your student services director. They will also speak with your CTE staff, your teachers and teaching assistants, and anyone involved in the CTE program. And more recently, they have started to survey CTE students to see what they understand about their rights and their responsibilities within the civil rights. So next slide. With the CCR, there are 8 elements. So with those 3 dimensions, they are going to be looking at 8 elements, or these are 8 topics. These topics include the administrative request, and this again looks at the policies and procedures that ensure you have a complete non-discrimination statement posted in all the required areas, and that you have your compliance coordinator contact available and posted in the required areas as well. For recruitment, admission, and counseling, they're looking specifically at the recruitment, admission, and counseling related to CTE, ensuring that there is no disparity between the services provided to the students based on any of those protected characteristics. Next is physical accessibility, which I mentioned earlier. They do a physical walk through the facilities and take measurements and ensure accessibility to students in all areas. Similar to that is comparable in the comparable facilities in which ensuring all students CTE that are using CTE are available and accessible regardless of their protected class. And then an example of this would be a locker room. If you have a men's locker room and a women's locker room, your women's locker room isn't 3 lockers and 1 restroom, where the men's locker room has 50 lockers and 10 restrooms, so that they're looking for services and equitability across. They're also looking for services for students with disabilities that are offered and that can range from site to site. Then the next 2 are financial assistance and work study cooperative programs and job placement. So with the financial assistant, they're asking for materials that you provide to students for higher education and for vocational programs, things like that, that work study cooperative programs. And then lastly, one is employment. And this is employment of staff at the site, specifically the CTE staff, ensuring that the hiring is done equitably and that they are aware of their rights and responsibilities. Okay, next slide, please. The last component of the CRR is the resolution. And there are two parts to the resolution. The first is a letter of finding. All school sites who have been reviewed will receive a letter of finding. This is sent usually within 30 to 60 days of the last review. The LOF, or letter of finding, is a summary of what was reviewed, any findings, and then any required corrective actions if there are any. And because the CRR is a federal level review, they do not include state level findings. However, they do include another separate section called observations that will provide feedback about state level requirements. So this is typically done, and if you have a complete non-discrimination by the federal standards, but they will provide this information so that you're in the observation section so that you can be compliant in all areas, not just federal, but state as well. Next slide, please. And the next part of this resolution is what's called the Voluntary Compliance Plan, or VCP. And this will be where your findings are issued in the VCP. And you can see on the slide, there's a sample of what this table would look like. And the first two columns will be completed by the reviewer for the issued areas that require corrective action. It's the responsibility of the school site to complete the next four columns. They will expect that you provide a reasonable completion date that works for your site and a naming of a responsible party that will work for your school site as well. The plan is returned to the reviewer, and they make sure that all areas are completed, and they make sure that they continue to work and follow up with the assigned responsible party. And they also continue to provide that ongoing support in order to ensure that the items are corrected. And that's it for this section of CRR, and I'm going to hand it over to Jeannie.
Thank you, Debbie. So the next section addresses LCAP submission and approval reminders. And I'm going to start this section. So if you go to the next slide, thank you, Helen. So here we've provided on the screen the district pre-review tool. And many of you are familiar with this. Our office has met with each district to review this district pre-review checklist. This checklist articulates the components to be included in each LCAP section. And we encourage district teams, including program and fiscal staff who are working on the draft LCAPs, to use this checklist as a guide when you're completing the draft LCAP, so that teams can be sure they are proactively addressing all of the instructions, adhering to expenditure regulations, and providing the required calculations. We have been providing feedback to districts that have submitted plans for pre-review. And so as a reminder, we use this checklist, and this reflects what is included in the LCAP instructions at the end of the LCAP template. So as a reminder, these instructions provide more information for what needs to be addressed in the prompts than what is included in the outward-facing prompts. And so many of the submissions for pre-review have been drafts that will be updating fiscal information to align with the May revise. Our team and the team from Business Advisory Services are or will be in the process of also providing feedback on drafts with this completed fiscal information. So this checklist is posted on our website for your reference. On the next slide, we have a screenshot of the charter school self-reflection tool. Okay, and charter schools will submit their LCAP to LACO, but the charter school LCAP is not approved by LACO. Okay? So there's a difference. With this charter school self-reflection tool, we provided an office hour for charter schools to review the tool and learn about the tool. And this tool is intended to support charters in addressing all of the required elements in their LCAP. One of the sections, the Engaging Educational Partners section, reflects the option for charter schools to use their LCAP as their SPSA and the related requirements for engagement with required committees and educational partners. We encourage charter school teams, including program and fiscal staff, to use this checklist as a guide when completing their draft LCAP, so teams can be sure they are addressing all of the instructions, adhering to the expenditure regulations, and providing the required calculations in their LCAPs. And this tool is also posted on our website, and the link is included at the bottom of the slide. Over the next couple of slides, we wanted to take some time this morning to highlight some of the frequent clarification noted in pre-reviews so far. And so this slide looks at the goal analysis section. And some things we wanted to bring to your attention are included on the slide. In prompt 1, we have requested clarification that the response is addressing this year's implementation, including successes and challenges with implementation, and that the response addresses all of the actions in the goal. Some of the responses may address a portion of the actions in the goal, and some of the goals have a lot of actions. So some of our clarification has been to add to the description so that it's clear what were the successes and challenges with the overall implementation of all of the actions in the goal. In prompt 2, this is the prompt where the LEA is describing material differences between estimated actuals and planned expenditures reported in the 22-23 annual update tables. Okay, so this response needs to be describing material differences in the 22-23 annual update table, as well as the 22-23 contributing actions annual update table. Prompt 3 is addressing effectiveness of specific actions in the goal. And in some of the drafts, we have seen that they provide a description of the data, and the data indicates progress that has been made toward specific outcomes, or where less progress is made. However, since the prompt is asking for effectiveness of specific actions to achieve the articulated goal, it's necessary to connect the response or the analysis of the data to specific actions in the goal. Included on the slide in blue is a section from the instructions that may be helpful in organizing the response to connect to specific actions. Prompt 4 is the last question in the goal analysis, and this is asking the LEA to describe changes to goals, metrics, desired outcomes, and or actions. And so this description should indicate anywhere where the description of the action is changed, where the desired outcome is changed, where the goal is changed. And so it should be very clear that it identifies any of the changes. Additionally, at the bottom of this slide is a link to our day 2 training slides, which address the goal analysis section. And so you may find helpful some of the questions and strategies you may use when completing this section. Next slide, please. So the next slide addresses some frequent clarification comments for LEAs that are required to include a required goal. And so we wanted to highlight this, this section. This is a new requirement for some LEAs this year. There's 3 key areas that we wanted to highlight. First of all, the metrics, actions, and expenditures must be related to the area of eligibility. So this would include metrics for each indicator that received the lowest rating on the 2022 dashboard for the eligible student group. Okay, so if the eligible student group was foster youth, then the required goal would include metrics, actions, and expenditures related to the indicators on the dashboard that received the lowest rating. It's important to note that the goal may also include additional metrics that inform state priority areas, such as survey data and data to inform local indicators. Additionally, the LEA may include local assessments that are related to areas of eligibility, such as benchmark assessments for ELA and math, DIBELS, or social emotional screeners. So you're not limited to the areas of eligibility from the dashboard, but they must be included, and you may include other related metrics. This goal for the required goal for contributing actions and expenditures to be included, these would be included for English learners, low income, and foster youth that increase or improve services for the intended student groups. And we wanted to note that the homeless student group is also a subset of the low income student group. So if the required goal is for homeless students, it may include contributing actions. Non-contributing actions and expenditures would be included for the other student groups. Next slide, please. Okay, so another section that we haven't pre-reviewed yet, but we wanted to give some tips based on our prior experience with the pre-review, and really these are reminders. So in the budget overview for parents, the narrative response, the first response asks the LEA to briefly describe any of the general fund budget expenditures for the current school year that are not included in the local control and accountability plan. So we have 2 areas that may be helpful for you as you're crafting this response. And so things to consider are other funding sources that are not included in the LCAP. Some of these are listed on the screen: your title programs, ELOP, A through G grant, your ESSER funds, educator effectiveness funds, community schools grant, IDEA, programs for students with disabilities. And so as you're crafting this response, how can your response describe the use and purpose of other funds so that it's comprehensible for parents? And then another consideration would be addressing other expenditures that are not articulated in your LCAP, such as general operating expenditures. This might include utilities, maintenance, things of this nature, as well as staffing expenditures that are not included in the LCAP. And again, the big idea here is, how might the response describe budgeted expenditures that are not included in actions that address these general operating expenditures, so it's really comprehensible for parents. Next slide, please. And so here, thank you, on the narrative response number 3, this narrative response asks the LEA to briefly describe how this difference impacted the actions and services and the overall increased or improved services for high needs students in 22-23. What this difference is when there is the total estimated actuals reported in 2022-23 contributing actions annual update are less than what was planned to increase or improve services for English learners, low income, and foster youth. Okay, so when there's a difference between what was planned for contributing actions and the estimated actuals, the LEA has to describe how this difference impacted the overall increased or improved services for high needs students. Some things to consider in drafting your response are quantity and quality of services. You might consider addressing, how did less spending impact the quantity of services provided for the intended student groups? In other words, what and where were services not provided as planned, or where were there less services provided than had been planned? And another question to consider is, how did less spending impact the quality of services for the intended students? Okay. This may be related to professional development, for example. And if professional development was not able to be provided to the extent planned, that may have impacted the quality of service or the quality of instruction provided for the intended students. And so the last bullet addresses this key idea, and these responses have to be concise and comprehensible. And so the key idea is, how does the response describe how underspending impacted the quantity of services and the quality of services for the intended student groups so that it's comprehensible for parents? Right, next slide, please. We have a couple reminders about the action tables, and I'm going to provide the first two. This reminder addresses the 22-23 annual update table. And it's necessary that the information included in the table is carried over verbatim from the 22-23 LCAP. Okay, so all of the information that was included in the 22-23 LCAP for actions and expenditures must be included in the annual update table. Another reminder is that the estimated actuals are to be included as of June 30th. Okay, so it's a projection of what the LEA expects to have spent as of June 30th. And the estimated actuals are included in the red box noted on the slide. Next slide, please. And this next slide is a reminder addressing the 22-23 contributing actions annual update table. And so again, the key component is it must be verbatim from the 22-23 LCAP. Okay, so the planned expenditures and the actions must be the same as were included in the contributing table for the 22-23 school year. The estimated actual S&C grant, which is the first red box, must be based on current updated 22-23 LCFF calculator may revise. We encourage you to work closely with our Business Advisory Services unit to make sure that you're using the most updated figures. And then the same reminder is for the estimated actuals, same as for the non-contributing actions. These are projected costs through June 30th. And I'm going to turn it over to Rachel to address the carryover table.
Thank you, Jeannie. So this slide here just highlights a few reminders regarding the 22-23 LCFF carryover table. And so at the top of the slide, you can see a screenshot of the 2022-23 LCFF carryover table, which you'll be completing this year with your 23-24 LCAP. And then at the bottom of the slide, you'll see a screenshot that has a sample 2021-22 LCFF carryover table, which was completed last year. And so as a reminder, when you're entering the 2022-23 estimated actual LCFF base grant, which you can see highlighted by the red box, remember that this amount must be based on the current updated 2022-23 LCFF calculator. Then the next reminder we have is regarding the LCFF carryover percentage from the prior year. And this is the third column that's highlighted in purple in the top screenshot. And so this represents your 2021-22 carryover percentage. So that would be the carryover percentage that was calculated last year when you completed the 21-22 carryover table. So for LEAs that use our LACO eLCAP system, our system will automatically populate this field for you from the prior LCAP when you roll over your plan. However, if you use doc tracking or another format, you may have to enter this prior year percentage manually. And so to get this percentage, you would go to your approved 2022-23 LCAP and then refer to the 2021-22 LCFF carryover table. And it would be the percentage that's shown in the last column of that table, which you can see in the bottom screenshot highlighted in green. And so that's what it's referring to when it's the prior year percentage. And so you'll need to confirm this amount that it's correct to ensure that your 2022-23 carryover is calculated correctly. Next slide, please.
Oh, escape.
Okay, so next, we just wanted to provide some reminders regarding the LCAP submission and approval process. And so this slide here just provides an overview of the components that make up the complete 2023-24 LCAP. This includes the budget overview for parents, the 2023-24 LCAP template, the action tables, and the LCAP instructions. And so the components of the LCAP must be assembled as one document in the order that's shown on the slide. And so when you take your plan to your board for adoption, and also when you post it on your LEA's website, you need to be sure that it's included as a single document in the order that's shown on the slide. And so here, this slide highlights the steps for board adoption and submission of the LCAP. So first, the LEA's local governing board must hold a public hearing for both the LCAP and the budget. And so it's important to remember that the agenda for the public hearing must be posted at least 72 hours before the public hearing. Then the governing board must adopt the LCAP and budget at a separate public meeting held after and not on the same day as the public hearing, on or before July 1st. One other important reminder is that the local indicator results must be presented to the local governing board or body at the same meeting in which the LCAP is adopted. So your adoption meeting and not your public hearing meeting. Districts must then submit the board-adopted LCAP to the County Office of Education no later than 5 days after the adoption for review and approval. And charter schools must submit their adopted LCAP to their County Office of Education by July 1st. So all LEAs in LA County will submit their board-adopted 2023-24 LCAP to LACO through the eLCAP system. And so in the next few slides, we'll provide a quick overview of this process. So if your LEA uses a third-party vendor, such as Doc Tracking, to complete your LCAP, then you will just upload and submit a PDF of your complete LCAP to LACO through the eLCAP system. And so again, the complete LCAP, it includes the budget overview for parents, the 2023-24 LCAP template, the action tables, and the instructions. And again, it would be uploaded as one single PDF file with all of those components included in that specific order. And so the first step would be to log into the eLCAP system. Or if you don't already have an account, then you would need to register as a new user at elcap.laco.edu. And so once you're logged into the system, you'll click on Manage Plans, which is located on the left menu bar under LCAP. And then on the next screen, you will select the orange button that says Add New Plan. And so you can see that highlighted in step 3. So once you add a new plan, this title page will pop up. And so you'll need to complete the required fields on this page. And so that includes the plan title and year, the date of adoption, the LEA type and name, as well as the LEA contact information. And so one reminder for the plan year, be sure to select 2023-24. At the bottom of the title page, you can see where you will upload the PDF file of your complete LCAP. And so remember, the system will only allow you to upload one file. So it's important to be sure that all of the LCAP components are included in that file and in the correct order. So at the bottom of the title page, you will need to click on the box that says, do you want to use the PDF plan upload? And so this will allow you to choose your file to upload. Once you've selected your file, then you will need to click on the green cloud button to upload the file. And then once the upload has completed, you'll see that the file name will replace the Choose File button. And then you will need to be sure to click the Save button. And the final step, which you can see in step 6, is to officially submit the plan. So to do this, you would go back to the plan index. And here you'll see the orange Submit button at the top of the screen. And so you'll click this orange Submit button to officially submit the plan to LACO. Now, for those LEAs that use the eLCAP system to develop their LCAP, when the plan has been completed and adopted by the local governing board, to officially submit the plan to LACO, you would just click on that orange Submit button at the top of the screen in the plan index, as shown here on the slide. And then after the plan is submitted, for all districts, you'll see that the status in eLCAP will change from draft to submitted. And so then your superintendent will receive an email request to authorize the submission of the plan. And so once the superintendent authorizes the submission of the plan, then the status will change to authorized. And then the formal review process will begin. And then just as a reminder for pre-reviews, please do not officially submit the plan in eLCAP. Instead, you'll email the PDF of the draft plan to your assigned LCAP coordinator. And you can download a PDF of the plan by clicking on the Download PDF button that's also located in the plan index. So on this next slide, we're going to go over the criteria for LCAP approval. So when reviewing the LCAP, there are 4 criteria that must be met for approval. And so the first is that the LEA has adhered to the State Board of Education adopted template and has also followed the instructions for completing the template. And just again, as a reminder, the prompts are for the reader and the instructions are for the writer. The second approval criteria is that the LEA budget for the upcoming fiscal year includes expenditures that are sufficient to implement the actions in the adopted LCAP. The third criteria is that the LEA has demonstrated how it is meeting its requirement to increase or improve services for students who are low income, English learners, or foster youth. And then finally, that the LEA has adhered to the required calculations, including determining any carryover and how that carryover impacts the total requirement to increase or improve services for unduplicated pupils. Next slide, please. So Education Code 52070 provides the requirements and timeline for the LCAP approval process for school districts. And so here you can see an overview of that timeline. So the LCAP must be adopted by the local governing board by July 1st, as previously mentioned, and then submitted to the county office within 5 days of adoption. The review and approval process begins following the submission of the board adopted LCAP. And so then on or before August 15th, the County Office of Education may request clarification in writing. And then the district must then respond in writing to the request for clarification within 15 days. Within 15 days of receiving the response from the district, the county office may provide recommendations in writing for amendments to the LCAP. And so then the district must consider the recommendations in a public meeting within 15 days of receiving those recommendations. And then lastly, the deadline for the county office to approve the LCAP is October 8th. And then just one additional thing to note is that the district's budget cannot be approved until the LCAP is approved. So this slide here just provides an overview of the local indicators that are required for LEAs. And so please note that the last 2 shown on the slide are only applicable to county offices of education. So as previously mentioned, the 2022-23 local indicators must be presented to the local governing board as a non-consent item at the same meeting in which the LCAP is adopted. And so the CDE has developed self-reflection tools for LEAs to use to report its progress on the local indicators to its educational partners and to the public. And so these self-reflection tools are available on the CDE Local Indicators webpage. And you can find that webpage at the link that we've included at the bottom of the slide. So LEAs may also want to consider using these self-reflection tools as a resource when reporting the local indicator results to the local governing board. And then also remember, you will also need to submit these local indicator results to the dashboard when it opens sometime probably in the summer. And so the last reminder that we wanted to provide is that all LEAs must post their board adopted LCAP on their website. And so this slide just highlights the applicable education codes related to the posting requirements for both school districts and charter schools. So for both school districts and charter schools, the LCAP must be posted as one single document with all of the required components shown in the same order that's shown on slide 36. And so again, that's the budget overview for parents will be first, then the LCAP template. Next would be the action tables, and then finally the LCAP template instructions. And one last important thing to note is that school districts are also required to post the LCAPs of any charter schools that they authorize on their district website. And so that concludes this section. So I will now turn it over to Helen.
Thank you, Rachel. Next, we'll be discussing Stronger Connections Grant within the bipartisan Safer Communities Act. Although CDE is still working on the logistics of the application process to be out later this year, we thought it would be a good idea to kind of front load you with some information. The Bipartisan Safer Communities Act, or BSCA of 2022, provides historical funding to support state educational agencies and LEAs and schools in establishing safe, healthy, and supportive learning opportunities and environments. This includes $1 billion through the Title IV Part A of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act for state education agencies to competitively award subgrants to high-needs LEAs to establish safer and healthier learning environments and to prevent and respond to acts of bullying, violence, and hate that impact our school communities at individual and systemic levels, among other programs and activities. So as mentioned, on June 25th, 2022, President Biden signed Bipartisan Safer Communities Act, which provides $1 billion again in funding to state educational agencies to be distributed under Title IV Part A. The BSCA specifies that SEA must make competitive subgrants to high-needs local educational agencies as determined by the SEA for activities to support safe and healthy students under the Section 4108 of the ESEA. The department has designated BSCA Section 4108 funds as Stronger Connections Grant Program to distinguish it from regular Title IV Part A Student Support and Academic Enrichment Grants Program, which funds broader range of activities, including activities to support well-rounded educational opportunities and effective use of educational technology. Congress provided funding in the BSCA for the Stronger Connections Grants Program under Title IV, again, Part A, but it established some requirements unique from the Title IV Part A program. Under Stronger Connections, a state educational agency must make subgrant awards on competitive basis to high-needs LEAs as determined by the state educational agencies. And funds may be used only for activities authorized under Section 4108 of the ESEA, which we will discuss later today. And the funds allocated under the program must be administered and tracked separately from the SEA or LEA's regular Title IV Part A formula allocation. There's a SEA Stronger Connections LEA subgrant competition must seek applications from, again, high-needs LEAs to use funds for the activities under Section 4108. However, SEA may design its Stronger Connections LEA subgrant competition in a manner that prioritizes certain scope of the LEA's activities within the breadth of one or more specific allowable activities. An example might be a state agency might conduct a competition for grants to support conducting school safety assessments and creating safety plans, implementing the MTSS or positive behavior intervention and supports, or improving meaningful family engagement opportunities. And now I'm going to turn it over to Anita to continue with this section.
Thank you, Helen, and good morning, everyone. Okay, so you're probably wondering what are some of the allowable activities under this new grant. And so Section 4108 says that some of the allowable activities are promoting community and family involvement in schools, providing school-based mental health services and counseling, promoting supportive school climates to reduce the use of exclusionary discipline, establishing or improving dropout prevention programs. You can also use the funds for supporting re-entry programs and transition services for justice-involved youth, implementing programs that support a healthy, active lifestyle, nutritional and physical education, implementing systems, programs, and practices to prevent bullying, cyberbullying, and harassment, developing relationship-building skills to help improve safety through the recognition and prevention of coercion, violence, or abuse, including teen and dating violence. You can also use it to establish community partnerships to address issues of school safety and climate, forming behavioral threat assessment teams or multidisciplinary teams to evaluate possible threats of harm to students and to identify needs of students early in order to avert possible harm. And you can also use it to enhance an LEA or school's ability to develop high-quality, comprehensive school safety plans. And as you contemplate the possibility of applying for this upcoming grant, think about the ongoing and meaningful opportunities for educators and staff to be involved in the selection of evidence-based strategies and activities that, once implemented, can increase student, educator, and staff safety and well-being. Awardees of this upcoming grant can definitely make a positive impact on current and future generations to come. And so the Stronger Connections Grant funds, once applied for and awarded, will be available for obligation by state education agencies and LEAs through September 30th, 2026. So be on the lookout for a survey coming to you from CDE if you are on their listserv regarding the criteria to be used for high needs. They want your opinions. And later this year, requests for applications will come out for the Stronger Connections Grant opportunity. If you'd like to have more information, please check out these resources and links, which are the FAQs for the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act, Stronger Connections Grant Program, CDE information on Title IV, Part A, Student Support and Academic Enrichment Specialized Program, and finally, there is an email address here that you can use to inquire more about the program. Thank you. And now to close out our meeting, here is Adrienne.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. At this time, we're going to again show you the survey link and the QR code to take our end of the year survey. We truly value your input and we'll use this to help our planning for the 23-24 school year. It's a very short survey. It shouldn't take very long to complete. There are a few questions that are open-ended questions, but for the most part, they're just quick click button questions to answer. And so we will be, if you don't have the time today, it is part of our PowerPoint slides, but also when we send out the Q&A, we will again provide the link and the QR code so that you can take the time to complete this. This really is important to us. And so we want to make sure that we hear your voice. And so now, before we end today, we would like to congratulate all of those who have retired this school year. Starting from our fearless leader, Bonnie McFarland. We also have Zoila Zavaglio from Pomona USD and Janice Don Yanavard from Eastside Union. And if there's anyone else here that is retiring or moving on, please put it in the chat. We definitely want to recognize all of you. We know that, the Zoom format is convenient. And the fact that you can review the posted, recorded meeting is also helpful too, but there's nothing like person to person, as much as the convenience of our Zoom meeting. So again, we really do enjoy providing you this support. And we want to thank you for all of you for joining us this past school year. And I really also would like to take the time to thank the amazing team here, the LCAP-State and Federal Programs Unit, especially for their dedication and expertise in federal programs and the LCAP. And as always, if you have any last minute questions, please place them in the chat and we will again address them and send them to you in the Q&A. And so again, is there anybody else that is retiring, moving on to bigger and better things? Thank you. Yeah, and it's so good to see everybody. And if you are able to take off your video and put on your video, we definitely, like I said, we miss seeing all of you in person, but we definitely enjoy the phone calls, the emails, and that's again is why the survey is important. Perhaps you want to suggest perhaps a hybrid, or maybe one meeting or two meetings in person and the rest in Zoom. So again, we're open to your suggestions, because again, it's about the support, and part of that support is all of you networking with each other. And I know before the pandemic, that was real critical, especially when sometimes you're in these positions where you feel like you're the Lone Ranger. And so you want to make sure that, you're not the only one that's having to, implement federal programs and the LCAP as well. So again, thank you so much. It's been a year, a year of change. And so again, we truly appreciate each and every one of you. So, and again, also, the Memorial Day, please take time to honor the U.S. military men and women who lost their lives in service. And that's important too. And we hope you have a wonderful summer, that you were able to get some time off and some rest, or maybe it's just to catch up. So again, maybe a little both, but anyways, again, thank you so much. Karen, you're here. Happy retirement to you. I'm gonna rat you out here. Karen's retiring from LAUSD. So again, such wonderful, bittersweet news for us, but wonderful for all of you that are retiring and are getting closer to retirement. So
See, with Connie, with Karen and Bonnie gone, I gotta leave. That was the group way back when.
Yeah. Well, thank you, everyone. And everyone have a great day, great weekend, and again, a great summer. So we'll see you in a few more months, but I think it's going to go by really fast. So thank you again.